Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Fear the Walking Dead. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So first and foremost, we pick up with Sarah, in particular, her waking up. It seems like everyone, Luciana, Daniel, Charlie, Wes, and Al all woke up before her, and Jacob all woke up before her. She's the one that's kind of been out for about 2 days. And obviously it's like, right. It's like, oh, who was that pilot? It's like, yeah. Daniel's like, yeah, Al hasn't told us either. It's like, right, got to keep top secret about that. So, obviously, but it's like they're trying to figure things out, but they're in like something that was like a fort that was decommissioned. What was it, like in the 60s or something like that. But despite everything, it's, not a happy time because it turns out Wendell isn't with them, and they haven't been able to find Wendell. And obviously Sarah wants to go looking for him, but with everything that's kind of happened topside with, the radiation and stuff like that, it's like, it turns out this place wasn't directly hit because the warhead was a dud, but it's still leaking poisonous crap. So that's why this particular area doesn't look as bad. There is a warhead nearby that's leaking, so the radiation's bad. Was it cesium or something like that? So that's the leaking. So once again, it's not as bad as like the areas like we've seen so far. Because I noticed, I was like, man, this place is a lot more green than other places. The air is just polluted. It just looks just pure toxic all around, but now we have an explanation for that. But Sarah isn't giving up on Wendell. And I think it's interesting that obviously the person she'd get in contact with on the radio would be Morgan. Because like while she was doing that, I immediately thought about back when Rick was doing the same thing for Morgan earlier in the series. It reminded me of that. Obviously, we saw how that didn't always have, that didn't necessarily have a happier ending, like, because Morgan and Rick weren't able, like, Morgan didn't hear anything that Rick had said. So, but I do love that she's like, hey, Momo, and he's like, oh, that's funny. He's like, that's what we're calling a baby. It's like, baby, whose baby? It's like, oh, there's a lot to explain. But obviously it's like trying to track down Wendell. She's hoping to probably meet up because Morgan's like trying to head that direction to check on him. Because like this wasn't like on day one. It's very much like the Rick and Morgan thing of like, right, it was like days and days and days, like, because I think she said she was unconscious for like 2 days, and she was saying like later on she's like Wendell was missing for like 78 days. So obviously like we went through a lot of that time frame, like during those like montages of her trying to reach out to him. But luckily or unluckily, we run into Emil, because I have to correct that, because I kept being like, what's his name, Elijah? I knew it was something with an E, I just couldn't remember, but Emil, his brother Josiah is the one that ended up finding her, because it's like, right, I got in contact with you, and you're a pal of Morgan's, I can definitely use you to, because I don't think he knew that she was a pal of Morgan's until she referenced it, like, oh, like, why you have my friend's name on your box? Why you have a dude's head in that box with my friend's name written on it? And it's like, oh, that was supposed to be, it's like, oh, right, that's the guy that tried to kill Morgan. It's like, yeah, but his head was in the box. My brother's head's in the box instead. So it's a situation of, I can give you what you want, Sarah. I can help you find your brother, because I'm very good at tracking people. But you're going to have to lead Morgan into a trap for me, which Sarah's reluctant, but it's like, right, your brother, like, can you really be sure that he's okay and he's safe out there without you? So Sarah kind of makes a deal with the devil, so they work together. It is interesting that they're in a Ranger's vehicle, but it turns out Emil is one. I guess, Josiah is one. Emil was one as well, but so these unlikely allies have to work together. It's interesting, too, that he has the perspective that he has, especially considering, like, well, Emil was the killer, he was, but I guess that's further proof that Josiah isn't like that, because Josiah wants to bury the dead, which I think that's so interesting in many different levels. Just like the correlation of Josiah, right, he's all about burying the dead. There's that. Well, Emil was the first person Morgan's killed in a long time, because he was the whole not killing thing for a long time, but Emil's the one that shifted that to the point that Morgan realized to protect the people he cared about, to fight for what he believed in, he was going to have to evolve. He was going to have to change. He couldn't be the same person he was anymore. So it's just interesting to note how much of an impact Emil had on both of them in that regard of just like, obviously Josiah is out looking for revenge for his twin's death, but also Morgan's just like, Morgan shifted and became who he became because of Emil. So it's fascinating how that all kind of ties together and works out like that. That's the interesting aspect of this world, or just like how like so much can shape not just the world, but what the world does to people, what it makes of people, how it shapes them, and how that in turn like ripples out and affects other people. So, but he was like, yeah, the dead deserve to be buried, which like even Sarah's like, really? Like, you're such a hypocrite. You're a bloodthirsty killer. But then he was like, what about you? You're helping me get Morgan if it means finding your brother. So don't call me out on my BS when there's your BS you should be focusing on instead. So, but they end up tracking down what now believe I guess is one of the Skinners. This is the first like longest sense of amount of time we spent with one. Obviously, their whole thing is about stripping the dead, but it's like, why? Because it's like strip them of their stuff and then scatter it around. I'm like, why is that? It's what he kind of makes it seem like. So the reason why Rufus sniffed him out is because Wendell's scent led to him. Then Sarah found his bandana. His bandana was found amongst his stuff. Because like initially Sarah didn't want. It's like, no, I don't want to. Like, no, like, do we have to really make the dude strip? Like we could just be on our way. But it's like, no. Like Wendell might not be amongst those dead that are there, but obviously Rufus smelled something on him, because Rufus is good at finding the living and the dead. But ultimately, they find a place where he's been corralling a whole bunch of the dead. And Wendell wasn't there, but his wheelchair was, and there was plenty of blood. And apparently there was someone dead wrapped up in it. And so it's possibly that's Wendell, and it set Sarah off. And she goes chasing after him, even was planning on leaving Josiah for dead until, like, you know, obviously, like, he gets into the car, and obviously it's like, right, I held up my end of the deal, how about you hold up yours? And they're struggling back and forth, and they end up crashing. Sadly, right next to the warhead, and they're stuck in the vehicle, the dead are at their back. But, interestingly, well, Sarah kind of has like a panic attack. You know, for her, it's like she doesn't have asthma or anything, but then like she can't quite catch her breath. And Josiah, I keep wanting to say Emil, Josiah is there to help calm her down. He ends up talking about like why he wants Morgan dead so much, but Sarah's like, you're not a killer, you're not like your brother. For him, it's like his brother saved his life before. Like he's been in a precarious situation before, but the person, like, he never thought he'd make it out of it. But the person who saved him is the person that's in this box right now, and that's well, actually, he just said like the person is the same person in his car. He was actually, I guess, Emil, but also Rufus, because they were fighting like there was a fire, and he got caught in it, and Emil didn't know where he was, if he didn't know for sure that he was alive, but Rufus found him. But the reason why he kept looking is because he's like, no, I know you're still alive because I can feel it. I could feel it in my heart. And he's like, the moment his brother died, he didn't know, but he could feel it. Like the moment, like he could feel his brother's heart stop. It's like they had that connection. It's like, and that, remember what I told you? And she was like, right. If I believed he was dead, I wouldn't be looking for him, you know? So it's like, right, you would feel it in your heart if your brother wasn't alive. So they decided they can't just sit there and wait, because they tried to get in contact with Morgan, because she was like, please don't like try and kill Morgan. Like, this doesn't have to be who you are. And sadly, when the time comes, Morgan shows up, but Josiah immediately tries to kill him. In particular, he tries to use Emil's head to bite him, because it's like, right, I got to keep my promise, you know? And during the struggle, Rufus comes over and gets bitten by Emil, and you're like, oh, that is heart-wrenching. It's like, no, not the... Once again, it's like that thing of like, oh, who cares about the people, but the dogs, the animals, no. You know, I think we all feel that to some extent, which is kind of messed up, but, you know, growing up like around dogs, I guess like I always have a very soft spot for dogs in particular, because that's why I was hoping, like, you know, because I'm scared that's going to happen to dog on The Walking Dead. I was always scared every time I turn around. I was like, oh, please don't let anything happen to dog, because I was scared that, like, I was like, oh, something's going to happen to dog for sure. I mean, hell, look, Shiva died. Come on, you know, no pet is safe in the apocalypse, you know. But poor Rufus, and that changed everything for Josiah, because it's like, right, like, this is my fault. Rufus has saved me twice. And he's like, Morgan's like, I'm sorry about Rufus. He's like, no, it wasn't your fault. It was mine. Like, I got so wrapped up in trying to do this for my brother, but I realized at the end of the day, I was just doing it for myself. Because he just needed, I guess for him, it was just purely like, I wasn't there for my brother when he needed me. And the only way he could keep his brother alive was by getting revenge. Like, the longer he had this goal of revenge, the longer he could keep his brother with him and not, like, ever let him go. And Sarah tells a story about her and Wendell. It's like, yeah, we're not your typical twins. And Morgan kind of laughs because it's like, yeah, obviously remembering the circumstances of under how we met both Sarah and Wendell, but also just knowing who they are personality-wise. It's like, yeah, but it's like, her mom died giving birth to her, and obviously anytime she was connected, like, she was having trouble anytime they would take her off, like, ventilators. And but she was like, for the first time, like, there was a baby born on that exact same day that was put beside me, and what was it, NISU unit or whatever. And she was saying that, like, him breathing made her feel like she could breathe. And so that's what that came down to, because that's why she was panicking earlier, because, like, at that moment she thought Wendell was dead. But it's like, because it's like, not only is, like, him trying to kill Morgan, and also, like, on top of that, thinking her brother was dead. But ultimately, it was this beautiful thing, because for her it's like, I get now, like, when I thought Wendell was dead, she's like, I get why you didn't want to let go of your brother, and I can't blame you, like, feeling the way I do, And sadly, Josiah had to put Rufus down. He was a good boy. It was like, oh, Rufus, that sucks. It turns out, like, for Morgan, it's like, well, if Wendell if he wasn't with his wheelchair, that means he had to have got help from someone. And, well, we know, it's like, he brings up Victor. It's like, Victor is helping people, or at least claiming to be. So that's the best next place to check out. And Josiah wants to come alone. And Sarah was like, yeah, like, we could use his help. And even Morgan's like, yeah, we could use all the help we can. And so they go to Victor's tower, and Howard and someone else is waiting for him. But Victor comes out himself being like, oh, you're here. Oh, you brought another stray to my door. He has no interest in taking Sarah, because he's like, oh, I have a long memory. I remember those who chose my side. You weren't amongst them, Sarah. And so she wants to know if Wendell's okay, and Wendell is in there. But if he comes out, it's not a revolving door. He has to stay out. And even if you do go with Morgan, he doesn't have enough supplies. It's like, yeah, they've seen it firsthand. Granted, they had a little bit more. I guess it's also like, well, because he doesn't because they had enough to keep going after a while, because they ended up finding more food. Obviously, that's Howard and Victor didn't know about that, because they found out about that after Howard had already left. But even then, that wasn't like a forever amount of food. So, but for Sarah, it's like, she's in that situation because she can't guarantee her brother's safety, because even if she goes back to Luciana and them, it's like, that's a long trek, and like, my brother, like, will I be putting him more in danger if I bring him with me? And it's just like, knowing he's okay is all that matters. It has to be all that matters. And she wants to be reunited with her brother, but knowing that he's there, that he's okay, and Victor's going to take care of him because he is useful. So there's at least, you don't have anything worries about Victor doing anything. So Sarah's just like, promise me you won't tell him I was here, because if he knows, he'll come trying to track me down. It's just like, he's safe here, and that's what matters. And then obviously she's having trouble breathing, but then Emil's like, Josiah's like, it's okay, just breathe with me. But the fact is, it's like, your brother's okay, and look at you, you're still breathing, you're here, so Josiah wants to, like, stick around, but for him, it's like, he's got stuff to still figure out, but, because it's both Sarah and Morgan have had an impact. Once again, the ripple effects of just how this has affected everyone, because even Morgan has said, like, it's understandable, like, none of us are who we used to be, like, in this world. And so Sarah gives him her pills for Wendell, because it's like, yeah, I know Wendell's okay, and you're going to need him a lot more. So he's like, yeah, like, I don't know how to get in contact with you guys. So we haven't seen the last of Josiah. But because even Morgan was like, right, like, you could come back to me and Grace and Momo, but it's like, right, like I said, we're pretty stretched thin, but at the end of the day, we will find more, we will get more, we will find everywhere, we'll bring it all back, And so Sarah goes alone, because it's like, because she's like, yeah, the others are, Luciana and them are going to wonder where I am. It's like, don't worry, we're going to get it all back. We're going to get it all back. I mean, to be fair, we've been in this situation before. We were separated, you know. Morgan found his way back to everyone, you know. So they know Wendell's up there. They know John Senior and June are up there. Beyond that, we have no idea who else he's picked up in that time frame, but at least they know they're safe to some extent. But it's also like, yeah, it is Victor Strand, and there's only so much safety in that, you know, because that's a cause for concern all in its own right. But at the very end, we see that the what was the name they gave at the end? Was it Onslow? The leader, I guess, of the Skinners, or what were they? What they were called? The Skinners. I don't remember if that's what home dude from the first episode called them, or, you know, Victor referred to them as. But it turns out they've got the warhead, which are like, okay, what are you gonna do with that? Who are you? Man, it's like one fanatic group after another. We literally just had to deal with, like, the end is the beginning group, Teddy and his cult last season. So, like, who's this group? You know, is it another cult? Just because, I mean, obviously the world keeps falling, and, you know, it's like the world already fell, and now there was a radioactive fall. Now it's like, what has, we've already seen what this world, the first fall, what it birthed in this world. What has this second one, what is these nukes dropping, warheads dropping, like, what has it birthed in its aftermath? Not just with the dead, but with the living as well. That's going to be the big question going forward. But it's definitely going to be interesting to see who we end up picking up with. Because obviously we got a little taste with Luciana and them, but this was mainly on Sarah. So are we going to cut back to them? Once again, there's still Sherry and Dwight out there. I figure, like, our next episodes will kind of connect to those two. I'd assume maybe Dwight and Sherry and the family they're with might be the next on the list, or people like Morgan might get in contact with, just because, like, you know, it's another small group to try and bring into the fold and stuff. So we'll have to wait and see where things kind of go from there. Like, who else, what other stories we connect to in the aftermath of this. Not unless they end up getting brought in by Victor too. So once again, just have. Hope it isn't a situation where they get like Sherry and Dwight get divided on that. Well, like I said, we'll have to wait to see what comes up when it comes up. But I'm curious to see where the next episode takes us going forward with all of this. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.